I'm admittedly looking a bit like a Crackety fan right now, aren't I? Like, it kind of feels like we've always got the Crackety action going on, but here he is again. Shout out to you, Crackety, my love, for not privating your data like more or less everyone else. It's always weird as well, actually. Like, a lot of these people just end up appearing on streams anyway. But I'm not going to lie, guys. It's tough to find the data. I mean, I admittedly probably wouldn't be able to put up too many streams because of the work I'm doing for Dota 2's TI 11 right now. But even if it wasn't for that, man, it is a struggle to find games. You know, there's only so many people with access to the pop, and then most of them are privated. And the only other way then to get onto the privated ones is either their opponent isn't privated or you find them live on the ladders, which with only a handful of people is very difficult to do. But blessed be to the Crackety for making sure that we can check in and get some variety. You know, he's provided us eyeballs on Muslim, Beastie, and now we get to check in on Lenok. It's like Crackety's just being passed around all the Red Bull Wallow boys. And pretty cool to see them trying this map out, Gorge, which is a Red Bull Wallow map. So this should be making an appearance at the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they've fully confirmed the map list or if that's still going through an iteration or two. But I believe this was on there anyway. Interesting map as well. So as you can kind of see, the way this map works is you basically start in a giant ditch, and you can make your way up to the high ground on the outskirts. On the low ground, you start with very small tree lines, but they are predictably retracted at the back. This is an interesting detail, actually. It offers up a lot of flexi as to where the gold can potentially spawn, and we can see that already in this game. Lenok got a back spawn as the French, which is a blessing. Meanwhile, forward spawn for Crackety, which can be a little bit of curse if you really need to be hard in that gold. But cool thing for Crackety is he's whipped out the Ottomans, so likely he'll be able to apply a little bit more pressure early on via the free units that he can produce. And actually, the other thing is he's got retracted stone, so this is even better now for Crackety, because if there's something usually you want with the Ottomans, it's stone, whether you're going for a TC boom or you're looking to get into your military schools, either of these things will require stone investments. Lenok. Curious to see what kind of build is going to go for. You know, this is an interesting time, because if there was something we learned from the pop when it was open to everyone, there was this big deviation away from TC booming towards trading. Now, looking at this map, no trading will be happening. But what I'm curious to see is whether by sampling something else, French players got a kind of feel for something better than just TC booming. Especially considering there have been nerfs around TC booming, right? So they increased the build time and the stone required to build additional town centers. And that's why I think, like, unless you're a civ that has a complementary reason to want to build more TCs, such as sometimes the French because of the production speed, or the Abbasids because of how cheap extra villages are, or the Ottomans who need stone for other reasons and purposes in the early game, it might be that we just see people feel more value lies elsewhere with their civ. And I think the French is definitely one of them. Like, the idea is basically, instead of just, you know, booming up my own eco, which I can do reasonably well, why don't I just explode your eco in a different way? And that's definitely something the French are capable of. Yeah, I'm glad Crackety's getting some fans. He's a really nice guy. He's really informative. He has some great insights, and he's always, you know, duking out with some of the best. I think I cast Crackety months ago, like once or twice off. But I'm glad to see that, you know, he's kind of been able to plow him through. And is clearly doing something right when he's seen as a desirable scrimming partner with multiple people attending World LoL. Multiple favorites, actually, for World LoL to be in the top 8. Build up coming out, and looks like Crackety has gone for the Twin Minaret Madris. Makes a lot of sense on this map. There's no neutral trade post, so you can't actually benefit from the alternative choice here as the Ottomans. And also, this is just very desirable if you feel you're going to be under pressure. It gives you food sources condensed right next to your TC. Food sources that you gather from quicker than any civ in the game. Remember, you gather a 40% increased gathering, or 50%, sorry, increased gathering rate, which exceeds what the Abbasids and Delhi do. Remember, they're only a 30% increase. And then, of course, they are smaller berry patches. That's the argument against. But the whole idea is it's just safe, reserved food source at the early point in the game where you should be pressured most by a French player. Speaking of that French player, very slow on this build-up. Has not gone onto stone whatsoever. Lenok is at least switching a few more people onto wood. Starts to look like he might be considering going for a multi-TC play. This could also just be him prepping the wood requirement for the wheelbarrow and then following up into an archery range. As most likely when you're up against the Ottomans, you're going to see the military schools come out, and a cheap fast unit to push out for free is going to be those spearmen. By the way, that's an interesting thing to consider, is that the Ottomans, because of how cheap everything is at the start in wood, they can actually just start off with a Rax and apply some pressure. I like that Crackety didn't do it in this game. I just think it's a little bit too gambly of how long the map is, how far away you are. And you don't necessarily know whether it's going to be a forward gold spawn that you can even block. Crackety is going to be setting up those racks now in the stables as well. I mean, it's just all so cheap. I'm trying to remember the cost. Is it... It's 100 wood, I think, per military building. This is one of those annoying things where I do kind of miss the old caster mode. Because you can actually like check the build, right? You can check what the cost is. But interestingly enough, they took that away on the screen here. I'm pretty sure it was 100 wood. But you can already see him prepping the Spearman, as well as likely getting a few Sipahi out there. Sipahi, of course, a brilliant unit because of how fast it is. It can kind of be a pseudo-knight, because if it finds any undefended eco, it can just fast torch its way through it via the fortitude attack speed increase. Looks like Knight did get in, so a little bit of chip damage done here. One villager will be going down. Crackety now 2 villies behind already. He's starting to wall himself in, which is the correct approach here. It kind of funnels the points where you have to focus the defensive units. And admittedly, like looking at this map, I start to see why Lennox chose the French. It's absurdly open. There's very limited safe resource, and it's almost impossible to wall. Actually, I think this map might be just almost S tier for French the more I think about it. Like, who else would want to play this? Like, Delhi maybe could find a world where they can exist in this just because they're kind of a pseudo-aggressive Civ. But I definitely think the king of the pack is going to be the French, simply because if you think about when you're doing French, usually it's going to be French Knights coming early on. You want natural defense points and choke points to kind of feel safe with. You don't have that at all. It's a complete open battlefield. Like, this is more absurdly open than Dry Arabia, a map that was considered to be the go-to open map where French were meant to dominate. It's a miracle he was even able to wall like this, but it still keeps the north side completely spread out and open. Also, a lack of gold access already for Crackety, so he's going to start stockpiling units. Has got the blacksmiths down, multi-military schools now coming out, so this will allow him to start escalating, and we can see that Crackety is somewhat catching up on the military side. And I like the fact that he has been prepping the Sipahi as well. Sipahi are going to be the answer to these archers. They're a damn fast one as well. Like we mentioned, once you get that fortitude going, the extra increased attack speed, you can easily blitz your way through the range battalion. And as a result, Lennox already prepped for that. Not just going knights plus archers, has mixed in the spears as well. That's been a very big switch up we've seen out of the French in the last 2 months, I'd say, where more and more players have identified that going all 3 unit types is the better choice. The knights can't carry on the lonesome. You need to make sure you're actually addressing what your opponent is putting out in front of you. Well, looks like Lennox is going to address our questions on whether TC is still the way to go. Obviously, with no option into trade, it just kind of seems like a natural one here. So secondary TC on the high ground next to the deer stack is going to inflate his income. And this is where it's getting a little bit problematic for Crackety. He has, of course, got that passive generation via the military schools, but he's going to need to get out of his base soon. Otherwise, Lennox is just going to spread out and take over the entire map. Silly, just trying to bait the attention. Still just Spearman and Sipahi, though. Archery range now finally being dropped, so Crackety is looking to innovate across his build a bit here. Is also prepping the meta. Really effective unit here. For those that don't remember, this is the drummer. It allows you to juice up your boys, whether it's with extra armor, movement speed, or what have you. Only one can be active on a unit at a time. I think the movement speed is the go-to here. Like, Sipahi are already quite fast, right, with the 1.88 movement speed. Just turn them up to 11, and they'll be able to just wrap around and easily pick off the archer straight away. At which point, the Spearman will dominate this fight. On the other side, is Lee thinking about a third TC here? It looks like he's still got one person working on the stone, so maybe a gradual build up to the TC. I like this. I think this is a good game to do it in. Your opponent still hasn't even come out of his base remotely, so you're just trying to greed it up so that you can invest that all into military down the line. As it stands, though, Crackety is starting to take the lead, and this is the power of the Ottomans. Passive generation. They're not paying for these Sipahi, for these metas, and now for these archers. They're all coming out for free. And at this stage, it's taken less than a minute to do so. Outpost now being built up. Force a little bit of a clash here, but the Knights are here alone. Actually, interesting detail. Lenok fully backed up. And Crackety, he snuck out with the scout. He got the info. He now knows about the secondary TC, and this is where he can think about punishing. Has got the blacksmith. Siege engineering definitely an option with this many people on gold. He seems to feel like it is go time. I believe. Where's that meta? He definitely got a meta, right? I don't see him. Did he forget about? There he is. There he comes. There's the mad lad. Look at him go. So he's got him on the attack speed aura. Why did I say movement speed? Movement speed comes later. So attack speed's pretty good here, actually, with the Sipahi. The extra attack speed in conjunction with the buffed upgrade means these archers will die almost instantly. So you have to have your spearmen in perfect location. Now, the other way you can play this is around melee armor, but you're mostly up against ranged. It's actually a good composite, so I do feel like you just stick on attack drums indefinitely here, and you will get your max impact. But I like they starting to station himself out here, and I love this TC drop now from Crackety. Very delayed, but for good reason, the pressure that came in. This is all about securing gold for the future. Crackety will now open up options that were previously prevented from him. And Lenok won't easily be able to punish him for it anymore. Although if he times this right, he can maybe snatch 1 or 2 villages, but it looks like maybe Lenok a little bit too slow. No, he's going to get in there. This build speed is so delayed these days. 2 villages already going down. It's going to force the army to rotate. It's still just delaying you, which means that Lee gets to build up a bigger villager lead than he already has. I wonder if Lenok is considering that third TC still. He's still gathering with 1 on the stone, so it's a possibility it comes into the picture. I don't think he ever intended to go for outposts, but now he realizes he can't afford to go third TC. He needs to win a fight first. Clash is going to come out. That attack speed aura from the meta, though, is doing a lot of work. And the scholars, or imams rather, they're more like juiced up scholars, because remember, they're healing AoE. Love this detail out of Crackety. It's making it very difficult to take the fights. In fact, you need to target down the imam first. Does get rid of 1. But overall, Crackety looks like he could take this fight still. You see the Sipahi pushing away the Knights, and the Archers are all alone in the middle of the battlefield now. A good fight coming out from Crackety. Definitely pays a high price in losing the Imam, but worth it to beat the crap out of the Royal Knights and their retinue. I mean, I say that. This is actually turning around. Where are the spears? Crackety, he's got more spears coming. So maybe he can stabilize. He's going to need to fast as well, because that's the detail, Matt. Notice I mentioned the Imam like it was a big deal. It is. This Imam comes out early, but you invest your Vizier points. You don't get more. It's only 2 Imams. Using it on the front line like this was quite the gamble. And after that, Crackety has now lost both of them. Why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because when you look at the military side of things, they're kind of neck and neck. When you consider the Crackety, off his 20 milli, 14 of it are archers. He doesn't actually have a sizable force of troops to deal with the Knights. So he could still be routed if he's not careful. Especially with the ranged armor upgrade being there for Lee. Crackety, he knows he needs to get some damage done here. He needs to keep posturing, but this is the difficulty he has. Limited troops to buffer away the Knights. In fact, he's going to be overwhelmed, forced to trade out, and it's going to be a bad trade for him. The meta will at least survive, so he keeps the attack speed aura. But these Knights will make quick mincemeat of the Ottoman army. Now, of course, the good news to the Ottomans here is when you think about the traded value, like it's all free for it. Well, not all of it, but a big chunk of it has been free for him via the military schools. So that is the upside. But at the same time, there's no doubt Lenok could afford the difference with the amount of eco lead he already has. In fact, you can just see the premium value he's got into these Knights still. Double the army value of what Crackety has. In terms of destroyed value, he's definitely taking good fights. Only person to kill villagers as well. As you can see these stats down here. And this is why I think it gets a little bit troublesome for Crackety, is if he starts to kind of bow here, if his legs don't hold, he's now playing exposed eco areas because of the food sources. He's got these berry patches, but even there to the north slightly, there's the deer stack in the center that he's trying to exploit right now. If he starts to lose fights here, he will lose the ability to get food long term. And although he always has that backup plan of the twin minaret, it's a small dose of power here. You know, it's only 4 patches, 175 food that take 120 seconds to regenerate. That's not enough to keep you going indefinitely. I like that Lenok is being patient about this as well. Realistically, there's no rush for him. He has the eco lead in this situation, and as long as he stays close to Crackety's base, the ultimate player can't risk a tech up. If he tries to go for a tech up and says, I've just invested 1,800 resources into this instead of fighting you, Lenok will be able to flood through with Knights before you can get the value out of that. So very important if Crackety ever wants to make his way up into Castle Age, he needs to take a damn good fight first. He's forced to do that. 12 Spearmen are here. Flash comes out. The Knight's going to be committed by Lenok. Archers are training out against the Spears. Nice peel back of the Scout, so he keeps the vision in the area. And Lenok, look at the way he's optimizing here. Peeling the Knights off one by one as they get low. Great micro out of the Korean. Allows him to take a reasonable clash again, pushing back once more against Crackety and getting more off that food source. Wow, I mean, this is really good micro actually out of Lee. Maybe overextending a little bit here, but it's valuable when he gets the metas like that. Because then the attack speed's gone, a huge DPS differential removed. And backs off, and just look at the injury on these Knights. Now look at the distributed value, the destroyed value. He's getting close to doubling his opponent up, and it's because he's able to always peel these Knights back and heal them. The reason he's able to do this is if you notice, something changed with Crackety's composition. It no longer features cavalry. Before, he was going very hard into Sipahi, so he had that flex to chase after the Knights after a battle. He no longer has that, which means Lenok has been playing with more confidence in these fights. Just think about how he was willing to commit into 12 Spearmen with about the same number of Knights. No hesitation. Because he knows he can just peel them away. With the extra ranged armor, there's not enough archers to kill him off. And those archers also have to worry about getting rid of Lenox, because if they don't, then the Spearman mass are just going to get disintegrated by their counter. And now, after a peel back, you'll see Lenok going into the Rams. This time, he's coming in to do some perma damage. Military lead still with him, and it's getting a bit spooky at this stage for Crackety. I mean, Lenok, he's already transitioning to farm, so that weakness is going to be behind him. That's a weakness that Crackety still has ahead of him. And the raid comes in on the north side. Oh, the sneak. And just look how healthy these Knights are already. It didn't take long. And all of a sudden, Crackety's redeeming factor of going for this TC drop to secure the berries is gone. He'll react with his army here. The problem is the second wave is coming on the east side, and that's going to block out the deer as well. And at that stage, it may just be curtains closed for Crackety. I mean, he's got passive unit production, right? That's the plus side. That's the upside. Let's be fair to the Ottomans here. He is pushing a unit out every 60 seconds for free, out of 3 buildings. But Lenok has over a 20 villager lead. And a premium army, a insanely premium army. It's double the value of Crackety's. It's very difficult to see a way back in here. Knights are going to push back all the villies. Just idling him up. Sure, they don't all die, but they haven't got really much to work on here. I mean, he's been resorting to berries at this stage, which compared to the minaret is not good. 0.66 gathering rate on these normie berry batches, so not going to allow him to necessarily match what Lenok is pushing. And speaking of what he's pushing, now up to 18 Knights in total. 16 about to commence on the battlefield here. A lot of Spearmen have been massed by Crackety. But we've seen Lenok's willing to commit. Archers exposed. Sipahi are going to be counted out by the Knights. And it looks like there's going to be a stand the ground coming out from Lenok as he trades out against all the archers, wraps around with the Knights on the backside. And Crackety is forced to chase, which means he's not even addressing the archers anymore. It's just a tank unit right now for Lee, and while that's happening, the Rams will start to assault the TC. It's overwhelm time, and with an overwhelming army value lead like this, there's no way that Lenok can lose this fight. Great patience coming out from the Korean. Understood that he didn't need to rush an end state in this game, optimized his Knights per fight to survive at the end, and in short, there was no possible way for Crackety to mass enough troops to get back into this game.